Julia Gillard today told us that to help stop global warming, she will make us pay $23 for every tonne of carbon dioxide we emit. And she swore that this would hardly hurt anyone at all.
9 out of 10 households will get a tax cut or benefit increase or a combination of both.
Joining me to analyse today's carbon dioxide tax announcement is News Limited business commentator Terry McCrann. Terry, a tax that leaves so many people better off, that's amazing.
It's
a
wonderful,
miracle.
isn't it, Andrew? How can you... Let's have more of these taxes. Well, obviously, this is not about a tax. This is about saving the planet, and it's also about doing a grubby deal with the Greens. So we ended up with a complete mishmash of a package which doesn't even attempt to do what the government says it is to do, which is to cut carbon emissions.
Well, the government even says that the coal industry is nothing to worry about, that the coal industry is going to be perfectly healthy.
Well, it absolutely captures the insanity of the whole process, that a tonne of coal going into a power station in Australia is dreadful, terrible, we've got to stop it. But 10 tonnes of our coal going into a power station in China is wonderful. It's great for the economy. So China can have cheap coal-fired power, but from Australian coal, but Australians can't have cheap coal-fired power from Australian coal.
Now, what does it say about this tax that to sell it to the Australian public, the government is going to spend $4 billion more than it raises to compensate people?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's starting very low at $23 a tonne, and then you've got these added benefits on top of it, so-called benefits. But you've got to take those benefits with a grain of salt, Andrew. The government says, its own modelling says, that it's going to cost $9.90 per average household, but the handbacks, the benefits, will give them $10.10. It all comes down to 20 cents, and that's on the expectation that the Treasury modelling is perfect. And we all know how great the Treasury modelling is.
But I'm just wondering, the tax is supposed to, in the end, raise the money for the government to send it back in compensation. Now, after 3 years of this tax, the government's saying companies can then actually buy offsets from overseas up to 50% of their emissions.
And there are people all over the world saying, wonderful, we can now start selling these phony permits to Australia if they're stupid enough to buy them.
Wait till Nigeria hears about this.
Well, exactly. But there's going to be a floor price on those permits, apparently, of $15 per tonne. You can't pay less than $15 a tonne, even if everybody else wants to sell it to you at less than that. But it means, basically, that we could end up buying all our permits from overseas, and the government would then get no revenue, and it would still be handing out the compensation on the other side of the equation. How does that work? I don't know.
I don't understand either. So it's sending the money overseas, and then it's got nothing left to compensate people for the extra costs at home.
Well, apart from the fact that it's paying Danegeld, paying tribute to somebody overseas to allow us to continue to turn our electric lights on.
Now, Julia Gillard hasn't said how much the world's temperature will go down as a consequence, but she has said that this tax, and I want to show you the grab, will cut our emissions by 2020 by a specific figure that she's given.
This all adds up to a reduction in carbon pollution of 160 million tonnes by 2020.
Now, actually, this tax package will not do that.
It does on the very big basic assumption that it will all work exactly as planned, that we will in fact cut our emissions as a consequence of the price going up. But if the price doesn't go up, we won't be cutting our emissions by that extent.
But the point is that the price does have to go up. How much does that tax have to go up from $23 a tonne in order to achieve the target that Julia Gillard has committed?
Well, you're going to run into this clash in 2015 when we move to a free market, when it can be anything down to $15 a tonne, but the ambition demands it must be at least double what it is now. It must be at least $40
At least
a
double.
tonne.
Terry, thank you very much. 1 month ago, Liberal Senator David Bushby meowed at Penny Wong.
If I can finish now. Oh, yes. Why don't you meow when a woman does that?
Bushby apologised, but Labor went to town, smearing Liberal leader Tony Abbott as a sexist. Take Minister Tanya Plibersek.
Whenever there is conflict, we have the Leader of the Opposition and his senior ministers and reverting to this sort of sexist language.
But this week, Labor whip Joel Fitzgibbon meowed at Liberal Deputy Leader Julie Bishop. Fitzgibbon said sorry, kind of.
I believe there were a number of interventions from this part of the House during that provocative speech from the Deputy Leader of the Opposition And I do a catch-all apology for any that I may have made.
But where was Plibersek this time? Why didn't she smear Labor's leaders as sexist? Hypocrite. But what phony outrage all around. The Afghan parliament this week showed what a real insult looks like. Me, ouch. Protest theatre has never worked for me, not from those first days of those anti-nuclear rallies. They either seem too silly to take seriously or just so attention-seeking and self-obsessed that you can't work out the point. Perfect example this week in the protest theatre outside Julia Gillard's office. Does watching this woman demonstrating against the live cattle trade make you take her cause more seriously or less? And who had to mop up all that mess? Someone should protest. And that's the show for this week. 10 News is next. And I'll be joining a panel for tonight's carbon tax special, hosted by Hugh Remington at 9 o'clock here on 10. But it's goodbye from me for now.